Hello everybody, I hope wherever you are and whoever you may be, you are currently very safe, happy and healthy. And in today's video I'm going to be retelling a story that I actually told in one of my recent live streams. But it's something that's so important and personal to me that I thought it really deserved a proper telling and its very own video. I was inspired to sort of make this particular video by a couple of things really. I'm sure, like myself, if you're watching this, you're probably something of a petrol head. And being a proper petrol head, or indeed car enthusiast, because I am very willing to subscribe to the notion that you don't have to be in love with internal combustion cars to still be in love with cars. Like, I don't think the two things should be mutually exclusive. But for me, cars are very often so much more than a simple combination of metal, plastic and the odd bit of dead cow. They are a direct link to the past, and they are in many cases a direct link to our own often very personal past. They can evoke memories perhaps long forgotten, and they can really help us sort of in some ways communicate with people that aren't there anymore, or perhaps a time that we never really got to experience ourselves. I think it's one of the reasons why classic cars in particular are always going to be popular, because, I mean, let's be honest here, how many other ways do we have of really being so directly connected to the experiences of those that have come before us? And let's be pretty honest, a lot of experiences of the generations past aren't always that pleasant, so it's nice to enjoy some of the things that they had, which maybe we really do miss a little bit, and in some ways were perhaps a little bit better. But anyway, on to the story. To give you some background, my family has always had something of a connection with America, and in particular, California. My aunt moved out there in about 1980, out to San Francisco, and throughout various parts of the 80s and 90s, a lot of my family spent a lot of time there. My dad spent years out there. My granddad, who you may have seen in my video, my Irish granddad with the RS3, he actually spent, I think, most of the 80s and some of the 90s out in California as well, in San Francisco. They're moving down to LA. My aunt still lives out there. She's a full-time resident in America now. I have lots of family over there. But growing up, I'd simply heard all these wonderful, brilliant stories of California in the 1980s and how amazing it was. But I'd never been. I'd been to America once, and that was New York in about 2003. And New York really is a very, very different place to California. So I'd always dreamed of going there. And one thing I'd really wanted to do to make the trip extra special was to go there with my father and my grandfather, and to go to San Francisco and to see all these places that I'd heard these amazing stories about, you know, with the three generations of the Martin family together. And that was going to be a very special thing. We tried to organise this on a couple of occasions, and for various reasons it just hadn't sort of worked out. And it was becoming quite clear that we didn't really have an awful lot of time left to arrange it. My grandmother was becoming quite frail. She was quite ill. Her sight was sort of failing her. And it was very obvious that she wasn't going to be able to do this long distance travelling, which the pair of them, my nan and granddad, had been doing quite frequently on a at least annual basis for decades. And this was really going to be very much a last chance. So this is all in about 2015. So we decided to arrange things, and at the time I was still working in film. The problem with working in film, like many freelance careers, is that when I was earning money, that meant that I was too busy to go away, and when I actually had time on my hands, that meant I wasn't working, which meant I probably didn't have much money. I was always petrified of booking a holiday. I went years without really having a proper holiday because I was always worried that if I booked it, I would get the offer of work for that period I just booked off, and then I'd have to either give up my holiday or give up work. And the way film works, if you turn down one job with a company, usually that's the last time they offer anything to you. But I decided that this really was more important than money. This was something that I really had to do. We had to get out there to California, the three of us, plus, you know, others in the family as well. It was very important to me. So we arranged it, we planned everything, we even went so far as to make sure that my grandmother could get through the airport okay, because Heathrow Airport's pretty big, as is LAX, arrange all the little golf buggies and things like that for her, get everything planned. I'd booked myself a convertible Mustang, and the plan was we were going to spend kind of a week together in sort of the LA area, and then we were going to spend some time up in San Francisco as well. And so that was all going to work out. That was all going to be brilliant. That was all going to be fine, and everything was going, absolutely to plan. It was the first time I was really using Airbnb properly, so I was going to be partly doing my own thing, but also joining up with them at some key points. So about 3 weeks, maybe not even that much, before we were due to go, I get a phone call from Dad. And he says, can I come over and see him? So I did. So I went over, and he just said to me, he said, look, your nan's had a fall. She's gone into hospital. Thought she was just, getting old and all that, as she was. She was in her 80s. And then they did some further investigation. And it turns out that she is riddled with very advanced, fairly aggressive cancer, and she's not going to be going anywhere. And that was quite a thing to take on board. I'd be lying if I said that I had the closest relationship with my grandmother, but it's my nan, it's family. I think it maybe affected me more seeing how much it affected my dad, because he's not someone that ever gets particularly emotional, and this really sort of hit close to home for him for very obvious reasons. And when they told me, I was very confused. I was just shocked. I just didn't know what to do. The problem that I had, my immediate worry, as silly as it was I was like, well, we've all booked to go away, and everything that I've booked, I can't get a refund on it. Everything's non-refundable. I was trying to do this on a really tight budget. I can't get my money back for anything. And the first thing they told me was that you must go. You must go away. You must do this trip. They'd already discussed it, and they'd said, you have to do this, because, to be perfectly honest, if you don't go, you will have your nan will never forgive you for her ruining your holiday. That was the kind of person that she was. She would have been mortified that she had ruined my holiday. Well, it's not like it's her fault or anything, is it? But with the trip being just over 2 weeks, and it happening 2 weeks sort of after that, there was a very real possibility that when I came home, my grandmother wouldn't be there. So this is September. I went over to go and see her, and I had the best conversation I think that I'd ever had with my nan. I spoke with her for hours. I guess luckily, she still had all of her mental faculties. She was very, very aware of everything that was going on. She was in good spirits as you could be, and trying to stay positive and everything else. And she seemed genuinely excited about what I was going off to do. And so we spent a lot of time talking about all the different places and things and that I was going to go. And so 2 weeks later, I got on the plane, headed out to the States. Got to LAX. I had booked the convertible Mustang or similar with Alamo. And I'm this total mix of emotions. I was, super stoked that I was finally in California at last. An amazing, brilliant place. Been waiting 2 decades to get out here. Heard all these stories. But also, every time I saw something, I was thinking like, it's, I was coming out here to share all of this. I was coming out here as a part of a group, and now I'm going to be on my own for the next 2 weeks. And I got to the rental car depot, which is a short bus ride away from the airport terminal, and there were parked out front these 2 C7 Corvettes. And bearing in mind, if you're watching from the States, I had not seen a C7 Corvette up until that point. In fact, I hadn't seen a Corvette on the roads, I think, for probably a year or two before that. Corvettes are rare here. The C7 is a cool-looking car. And I saw that and I thought, wow, that's awesome. Like, that's a cool car. And I was still in a strange place, still in a strange headspace. So I got to the rental desk counter. It was all very manual back then, no automated stuff, feed your card and passport into the machine. I spoke to the lady and I said to her, just humour me. How much is the Corvette out the front if I want one of those instead? Thinking it was going to be thousands and thousands of dollars. And she did some maths, and the idea was with this trip, I flew into LAX, but I flew out of San Francisco. So she said, well, you can't take it to San Francisco. You'll have to drop it off here. So I said, well, okay, well, I'm here for a week. So how much is it to upgrade for a week? She did some maths, and it came back at $800, I think. And at the time, that was about 500 odd quid. So it's like £100 a day or something to upgrade. And I just thought, yeah, take my money. I had a yellow C7 Corvette coupe. Nearly crashed it on the way to the Airbnb because I didn't realise that Americans have this silly thing where some of the indicators, or what they're called turn signals, are actually red as well. So it looks like a brake light that's not working properly. So I nearly rear-ended the truck, and then got to the Airbnb, got some advice on where to go the next day. This was really super late, so I then went straight to bed. And the next morning, I woke up. I took the roof off the car. And I drove, it was 7 or 8 in the morning. It was really early and the sun was just rising. And I drove to the Griffith Observatory, which, if you don't know, is a very famous sort of landmark in LA. A lot of films been shot there or around there. And you got a great view over the city. So I drove up to the observatory. I was trying to go through all the radio stations in the car to try and find the perfect one, try and make everything just right. And then this station came on, and I think it was KLOS or K-Rock. I think it was K-Rock. And they played Gold on the Ceiling by, is it the Black Keys? I think it's the Black Keys. And that came on, and I was driving up this beautiful American sort of canyon-type road. It's not really a canyon road, but, it's got that feeling. It's going up a mountain. In this Corvette, roof down, sun was shining. I was in California. Some rock music playing away, I started bopping, and just, at that moment, like, everything was fine. Everything was absolutely fine. And I smiled, and I hadn't done that for about 3 weeks. It's a memory that's still seared into my mind. So, as far as I'm concerned, much like I think Jeremy Clarkson thinks of the 928, and I guess TGE sees the M3, and I do not care what you think of TGE. I really don't. Because plenty of criticisms could be very much levelled at me as a YouTuber as well. He and I are very different people, but we're both trying to do this similar things. It's very obvious to me. If you haven't seen his M3 video, I recommend that you watch it. It's not an easy watch, but that is proof, if ever you needed it, that he's not some heartless person. Same with Clarkson. He's a real people, real emotions. Often we try really hard to shield our viewers from it, and I'm not sure whether really that's trying to keep you guys away from it or to actually keep us from it. I think very often it's actually more us protecting ourselves, but it's a story that I wanted to share because I think it's important to have these stories to remind us about why we love cars so much. I know right about now a lot of people are going to be re-evaluating their relationships with their car. For some people, they might now be wondering why they have one at all. For others, they might now be rekindling a love that perhaps was getting a little bit lost and forgotten. And so I'd love to invite everybody who would like to share any sort of stories like that. And they don't have to be significant. They don't. It's not important. It's not a contest. But yeah, I'd love people to share their sort of car stories that are maybe about more than just going somewhere, if that makes sense. And how much cars can mean to people, to families, to friends, all that sort of stuff. Because pretty much everything I have in my life right now, everything good in my life is pretty much car related. You know, there's some sort of car connection somewhere. All of my best friends are all sort of through YouTube, through cars, through that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, cars are not the be all and end all. They absolutely aren't. But for me, they are the kind of glue that holds everything together. And for that reason, I am eternally grateful to them, and particularly grateful to that yellow Corvette that was so much fun and much better dynamically than the Camaro that I had to swap it for. That was a fall from grace, but that's a story for another time. So thank you for listening. Bye-bye.